Admiral Daeho Kim stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. His weathered face showed the strain of 3 years of unanswered questions. Behind him, communication officers worked at their stations, sending the same message into space over and over again. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the aliens," reported Lieutenant Young-Soo Park, his voice tense. Daeho turned around. "Put it on the main screen." The holographic display flickered to life, showing text in perfect Korean. The translation systems had learned the alien language months ago, but the message never changed in its tone. "To the primitive species of the third planet, you have ignored our generous offer of guidance for too long. Your crude chemical rockets and basic metal tools show you are not ready for space travel. Submit to the Galactic Council's wisdom, or face the consequences of your defiance." Dr. Bo-Ram Lee, head of Earth's Weapons Research Division, shook her head as she read the message. "They keep calling our technology primitive. Do they not understand what we've been trying to tell them?" "Apparently not," Daeho replied. He had been Earth's top military commander for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for first contact with aliens. Especially aliens who seemed determined to treat humans like children. The first alien message had arrived 3 years ago. Earth's radio telescopes detected it coming from beyond the solar system. The message was simple: surrender and join the Galactic Council as a junior member species or be forced to comply. Ambassador Hai-Wan Choi had led Earth's response team. She was Earth's best diplomat, skilled in 20 languages and trained in conflict resolution, but the aliens refused to listen to anything she said. "We told them about our fusion reactors," Hai-Wan said, reviewing the files of their attempted communications. "We explained our electromagnetic propulsion systems. We even sent them technical specifications of our weapons. They dismiss everything as lies or primitive technology." Captain Woo-Jin Park, commander of Earth's newest warship, the Thunderstrike, entered the command center. His ship was the first to carry the new railgun weapons that Dr. Bo-Ram's team had developed. "Admiral, the fleet is ready for testing. Should we proceed with the weapons trials?" Daeho nodded. "Yes, but keep the tests away from the outer system. We don't want to give the aliens any reason to think we're preparing for war." But they were preparing for war. How could they not? The alien messages grew more threatening each month. The latest intelligence reports suggested a large alien fleet was moving toward Earth's solar system. Dr. Bo-Ram walked to the tactical display, where a 3-dimensional map showed the positions of Earth's ships. 12 vessels now carried the new railgun technology. Each gun could fire tungsten rods at incredible speeds using electromagnetic forces. "The test results have been better than we hoped," she explained to the group. "The railguns can accelerate projectiles to 15% of light speed. At that velocity, a tungsten rod has more destructive power than our largest nuclear weapons." "How do they work exactly?" asked Hai-Wan. As a diplomat, she needed to understand Earth's capabilities if negotiations became possible. "Think of it like a very powerful magnet," Dr. Bo-Ram said in simple terms. "We use electromagnetic fields to push a metal projectile down a long barrel. The longer the barrel, the faster the projectile goes. Our ship-mounted railguns have barrels that are 2 kilometers long." Woo-Jin looked impressed. "And the aliens have never seen this technology?" "According to their messages, they use energy weapons. Lasers, plasma cannons, particle beams. Their ships are designed to fight against other energy weapons, but kinetic weapons like ours, they don't seem to understand the concept." This was the strangest part of the whole situation. The aliens claimed to rule over hundreds of star systems. They had faster-than-light travel, artificial gravity, and energy shields. But they seemed completely unfamiliar with the idea of simply throwing very fast rocks at their enemies. "Maybe that's why they think we're primitive," suggested Young-Soo. "Our weapons don't look advanced to them because they're so simple." Admiral Daeho studied the tactical display. The alien fleet was still months away, but their communication suggested they expected an easy victory. The aliens seemed to think that a small force would be enough to conquer Earth. "Sir, incoming priority message from Earth Command," announced the communications officer. The display changed to show President Subin Han speaking from her office in Seoul. "Admiral Kim, the Galactic Council has sent their final ultimatum. They're giving us 30 days to surrender unconditionally, or they will begin what they call pacification procedures." The command center fell silent. Everyone had known this moment would come, but it still felt like a punch to the stomach. What are your orders, Madam President? Daeho asked. Prepare the fleet for combat. Ambassador Choi will send one final diplomatic message, but I want our ships ready to fight. We will not surrender Earth to aliens who refuse to treat us as equals. After the president's image faded, the team began preparations. Hae-won worked on composing humanity's final attempt at peace. Her message would explain that humans were not primitive, that they had simply chosen a different path of technological development, and that they wanted to join the galactic community as partners, not subjects. Dr. Boram coordinated with her engineering teams to complete the final railgun installations. The weapons were tested and ready, but there were always small improvements to be made. Every percentage point of increased velocity could mean the difference between victory and defeat. Captain Wu Jin prepared his ship and crew for battle. The Thunderstrike was humanity's most advanced warship, but it had never fought against alien technology. No one knew if Earth's weapons would be effective against alien defenses. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Hae-won's final message was ready. It was broadcast on all frequencies toward the approaching alien fleet. She explained humanity's history, their technological achievements, and their desire for peaceful coexistence. She provided detailed information about human science and culture, hoping to convince the aliens that Earth deserved respect. The response came within hours. Inferior species. Your lies about advanced technology are pathetic. No primitive race possesses the weapons you describe. Prepare for pacification. Resistance is futile and will only increase your suffering. Admiral Daeho read the message twice, his anger growing. The aliens weren't just dismissing human technology, they were calling humans liars. They refused to believe that a species they considered primitive could have developed anything worthwhile. They're not even willing to consider that we might be telling the truth, he said to his staff. They've decided we're inferior and nothing will change their minds. Dr. Boram looked at the tactical display, where the alien fleet appeared as red dots moving steadily toward Earth. Maybe it's better this way. If they underestimate us, they won't be prepared for what we can do. The countdown to battle had begun. In 7 days, the alien fleet would reach the outer solar system. Earth's 12 railgun-equipped ships were moving into position near Jupiter's orbit. The aliens expected to find primitive humans with chemical rockets and basic weapons. Instead, they would discover that sometimes the simplest ideas were the most deadly. As Admiral Daeho watched his ships take their positions, he thought about the strange twist of fate that had brought humanity to this moment. For 3 years, the aliens had ignored every attempt at communication, convinced that humans were too primitive to matter. Soon they would learn that primitive and powerless were very different things. The 30-day deadline passed like a countdown to disaster. Admiral Daeho Kim watched from the command bridge of the Thunderstrike as Earth's fleet moved into combat positions. 12 ships, each carrying the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built, spread out across the Jupiter system. Commander Soo-jin Yoon checked her instruments aboard the Magnetic Storm, sister ship to the Thunderstrike. Her railgun was loaded and ready, its 2-kilometer barrel extending from the front of her vessel like a massive spear. She had trained for this moment for 2 years, but no amount of simulation could prepare someone for real combat against aliens. All ships report ready. Admiral, announced Lieutenant Hyun-woo Kang from his weapons station. He was one of Dr. Boram Lee's best students, an expert in electromagnetic physics who had helped design the targeting systems for the railguns. On the other side of the solar system, General Mi Young-song coordinated Earth's planetary defenses. Massive railgun installations on the Moon and Mars stood ready to protect the homeworlds if the fleet failed, but everyone hoped the battle would be decided far from Earth. The alien fleet had been detected 3 days ago, emerging from faster-than-light travel near the edge of the solar system. 200 ships, each larger than Earth's biggest vessels, moved steadily inward. Their technology was clearly advanced: artificial gravity, energy shields, weapons that glowed with contained plasma. Fleet Commander Zilthan of the Vexnari military reviewed his battle plans from the bridge of his flagship. The humans had been surprisingly persistent in their refusal to surrender, but no primitive species could stand against the might of the Galactic Council. His intelligence reports were clear. The humans used chemical rockets for propulsion and basic metal alloys for construction. Their energy signatures suggested primitive electromagnetic systems, probably mining equipment or basic industrial tools. The idea that such a backward species could pose any threat was laughable. Commander, "We're receiving transmissions from the human fleet," reported his communications officer. "More lies about their advanced technology. I assume," Zilthon replied with amusement. "Let them waste their breath. This will be over quickly." But High Counselor Thekmore, observing from the Council's monitoring station, was not entirely convinced. The human ships had positioned themselves in an unusual formation. Instead of clustering together for mutual protection, they had spread out across a vast area of space. Why would they separate their forces? He wondered aloud to his staff. It makes no tactical sense for conventional warfare. His science advisor, a thin creature with multiple eyes, studied the readings. Their ships are maintaining precise distances from each other, exactly 50,000 kilometers apart. This might be some kind of primitive ritual before surrender. Dr. Boram Lee, monitoring from Earth's command center, watched the alien fleet approach and felt a mixture of excitement and terror. The enemy ships were beautiful in their own way, sleek vessels that moved through space like fish through water. But their formation told her everything she needed to know about their tactics. "They're bunched together," she observed to Admiral Kim over the communication link. "Perfect targets for kinetic weapons. They have no idea what's coming." Lieutenant Kang had been analyzing the spectral data from the alien ships, studying the light reflected from their hulls. What he discovered made him smile. "Admiral, their armor is designed to absorb and deflect energy. The molecular structure is perfect for dispersing heat and electromagnetic radiation." "And kinetic impacts?" asked Captain Wu Jin. "They'll crumple like paper. Their shields can probably stop lasers and plasma, but a tungsten rod traveling at 15% light speed will go through them like they're not even there." The alien fleet continued its approach, confident and unhurried. Commander Zilthon had fought dozens of campaigns across the galaxy. He had seen energy cannons that could melt planets and defensive shields that could withstand the output of entire stars. But he had never encountered a species that fought by throwing objects really, really fast. On the human side, final preparations were underway. Engineer Dong-Hyun Lim ran diagnostics on every railgun system, checking magnetic field alignments and power couplings. The weapons had been tested extensively, but never in actual combat. One malfunction could mean the difference between victory and extinction. "All systems green," he reported to Captain Wu Jin. "The railgun is ready to fire on your command." Admiral Jin Ho Nam, second in command of the human fleet, coordinated targeting solutions from his position aboard the Steel Rain. Each ship had been assigned specific targets within the alien formation. The plan was simple: fire everything at once and see how many enemy ships they could destroy in the opening salvo. The aliens finally came within range, not the range of their energy weapons, but the range of humanity's railguns. The tungsten projectiles could travel across entire star systems if necessary, but accuracy decreased with distance. At 50 million kilometers, they were close enough for guaranteed hits. Fleet Commander Zilthon opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "Primitive humans, this is your final opportunity to surrender. Submit now and your deaths will be quick and painless." Admiral Daeho considered his response carefully. Then he opened his own channel. "This is Admiral Kim of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have threatened our world and dismissed our peaceful overtures. We offered friendship. You chose war." The alien commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Your chemical rockets cannot catch our ships. Your basic tools cannot penetrate our defenses. Surrender now or we will demonstrate the futility of resistance." "You're right about one thing," Daeho replied calmly. "We are about to demonstrate something, but I don't think futility is the word you're looking for." He closed the channel and turned to his weapons officer. "All ships, prepare to fire. Target the flagship and the vessels around it. Let's give them a physics lesson they'll never forget." Lieutenant Kang's fingers moved over his controls, finalizing the targeting solution. The railgun's magnetic fields began to charge, drawing power from the ship's fusion reactor. In the loading chamber, a tungsten rod the size of a telephone pole waited to be accelerated to incredible speed. Across the human fleet, 11 other ships completed identical preparations. The aliens continued their approach, energy weapons charging and shields at full power. They were ready for conventional space warfare. They were not ready for humanity's version of throwing rocks. "All ships report ready to fire," announced the communications. Officer Admiral Daeho took a deep breath. This moment would determine the future of humanity, whether they would remain free or become slaves to an alien empire that refused to see them as equals. "Fire," he ordered. 12 railguns fired simultaneously. 12 tungsten rods accelerated down their barrels, pushed by magnetic fields stronger than anything found in nature. Within seconds, the projectiles reached 15% of light speed and began their journey across the void. The aliens had less than 3 minutes to realize their mistake. Commander. Zilthan watched the human ships with amusement. He saw no energy discharges, no missile launches, no signs of any weapons firing. The primitive creatures seemed to be doing nothing at all. "Sir, we're detecting some kind of electromagnetic pulse from the human vessels," reported his sensor operator. "Probably interference from their basic equipment," Zilthan replied dismissively. "Continue the advance. Prepare to fire when we reach optimal range." He had no idea that 12 pieces of tungsten, each carrying the kinetic energy of a small asteroid, were racing toward his fleet at nearly the speed of light. The reckoning was coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Yujin Shin held her breath as she watched the tactical display aboard the reconnaissance ship Swift Arrow. The 12 tungsten projectiles were invisible to normal sensors, traveling too fast and too small to track. But the computer countdown showed exactly when they would reach their targets. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Fleet Commander Zilthan continued his leisurely approach, completely unaware of what was racing toward him at nearly the speed of light. His fleet maintained perfect formation, shields raised against expected energy weapons, armor configured to deflect plasma and laser fire. "Human ships are still not responding with weapons fire," reported his tactical officer. "They appear to be retreating." This was partially true. After firing their railguns, the human ships had begun moving away from the alien fleet. But this wasn't retreat, it was basic physics. When you fire a projectile at 15% light speed, you want to be very far away when it hits its target. Admiral Daeho watched his countdown timer aboard the Thunderstrike. 1 minute and 40 seconds. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew what was about to happen, but the waiting was the hardest part. Dr. Boram Lee, monitoring from Earth, felt her heart racing. 3 years of research and development were about to be tested in the most brutal way possible. Either her railguns would work as designed, or humanity would face conquest by aliens who considered them barely intelligent animals. 1 minute. Commander Zilthan was growing impatient. The humans were clearly running away, which proved they had no real weapons. He decided to end this farce quickly. All ships advance to full attack speed. Target their engines first. We want some of them alive for interrogation. His fleet accelerated, moving from a cautious advance to an aggressive charge. 200 ships surged forward, their energy weapons beginning to charge for the expected easy victory. 30 seconds. Lieutenant Hyunwoo Kang tracked the incoming projectiles on his sensor array. The tungsten rods were invisible to the aliens, but human technology could detect their gravitational signatures as they bent space-time around them. The targeting had been perfect. All 12 rounds would hit their designated targets. 10 seconds. Engineer Dong-hyun Lim monitored the railgun systems as they cooled down from firing. The magnetic coils were already beginning to recharge for a second shot. If this first salvo was successful, they would need to fire again quickly. 5 seconds. Fleet Commander Zilthan was about to order the attack when his sensor operator suddenly screamed in alarm. "Sir, massive kinetic signatures incoming." "Impact in 3 seconds." Zilthan spun around in confusion. "What are you talking about? There are no projectiles on our screw." The first tungsten rod hit the alien flagship at 45,000 kilometers per second. The laws of physics took over. When an object traveling at 15% of light speed hits something, the result is not an explosion, it's annihilation. The tungsten rod punched through the alien ship's shields as if they were soap bubbles. The armor, designed to deflect energy, crumpled like tissue paper. The flagship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was a massive vessel carrying 3,000 alien crew members. The next moment it was an expanding cloud of superheated plasma and debris. But that was only the beginning. The second railgun round struck the ship next to where the flagship had been. The third hit the command vessel in the second line. The fourth, fifth, and sixth rounds tore through the tightly packed alien formation like bullets through a crowd. Captain Wu Jin watched in amazement as his targeting display lit up with successful hits. His railgun round had struck an alien heavy cruiser dead center, splitting it in half lengthwise. The two pieces spun away from each other, leaking atmosphere and secondary explosions. Commander Sujin Yoon's shot had been even more spectacular. Her tungsten rod hit an alien battleship and kept going, punching through two more ships behind it before finally losing momentum. 3 ships destroyed with a single projectile. The alien fleet, which had been advancing in perfect formation just seconds before, was now a chaotic mess of destroyed vessels, debris clouds, and panicking survivors. In the space of 10 seconds, 12 ships had been utterly annihilated, and 6 more had been damaged beyond repair. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Their energy-based warfare doctrine had no answer for kinetic weapons of such incredible power. Their shields were useless. Their armor was worthless. Their superior numbers meant nothing when the enemy could kill from across star systems. Admiral Jinho Nam, aboard the Steel Rain, was already preparing for the second salvo. All ships begin recharge sequence. Target the command vessels and anything that looks like it might escape. The surviving aliens were indeed trying to escape. The remaining 182 ships began a desperate retreat, their careful formation abandoned in favor of chaotic flight. But escape from railgun weapons was nearly impossible. The tungsten rods could chase fleeing ships across vast distances. Commander Zilthon was dead, vaporized along with his flagship. Command had fallen to Subcommander Krelnoth, who was experiencing the unique terror of facing an enemy that could kill him from farther away than his sensors could detect. All ships, emergency withdrawal, he broadcast on all frequencies. Retreat to minimum safe distance. We need to reassess the situation. But there was no safe distance from humanity's railguns. Lieutenant Kang was already calculating trajectories for fleeing alien vessels. The computers could predict their paths and place tungsten rods exactly where they would be when the projectiles arrived. The second human salvo fired 8 minutes after the first. This time the targets were the fastest alien ships, the ones most likely to escape and carry word back to the Galactic Council. 12 more tungsten rods raced across the void at impossible speeds. Captain Yu Jin, still observing from the swift arrow, watched the second wave of impacts. The aliens had spread out their formation, thinking this would help them survive. Instead, it just made targeting easier for the human computers. Each railgun round found its target with surgical precision. Dr. Bo Ram Lee, watching from Earth, felt a mixture of triumph and horror. Her weapons were working perfectly, perhaps too perfectly. The destruction was so complete, so one-sided that it barely qualified as combat. It was more like extermination. The third salvo came 15 minutes later. By now, only 160 alien ships remained operational. Many of these were damaged and struggling to maintain speed. The human fleet continued its methodical destruction, firing their railguns every time the weapons recharged. Engineer Lim kept the systems running smoothly, his maintenance crews working to keep the magnetic coils at peak efficiency. The railguns were performing beyond specifications, delivering tungsten rods with pinpoint accuracy across millions of kilometers. After the fourth salvo, organized alien resistance collapsed completely. The survivors scattered in all directions, abandoning any pretense of military formation. Their only goal now was to escape the killing field and warn the Galactic Council that their assumptions about primitive humanity had been catastrophically wrong. Admiral Daeho called a halt to the firing. Of the 200 ships that had entered the solar system with such confidence, only 36 remained. Most of these were too damaged to pose any threat. He decided to let some of them escape. "Sir, why are we letting them go?" asked Lieutenant Kang. "We could destroy the entire fleet." "Because we need witnesses," Daeho replied. "The Galactic Council needs to know what happened here. If we kill everyone, they might think this fleet simply disappeared. But if survivors return with the story, the Council will know exactly what kind of enemy they're facing." The battle was over. In less than an hour, humanity had destroyed or disabled more than 160 alien warships without suffering a single casualty. The railgun technology that the aliens had dismissed as primitive mining equipment had proven to be the most devastating space weapon the galaxy had ever seen as the surviving alien ships limped away at maximum speed. Captain Wu Jin looked out at the debris field that had once been a proud fleet. Pieces of alien technology drifted through space, testament to the power of human ingenuity. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The news of the fleet's destruction reached the Galactic Council like a shockwave through space. High Counselor Thekmore stood before the Supreme Overlord Kethaval, trying to explain how 200 advanced warships had been annihilated by a primitive species that supposedly used chemical rockets. Impossible, Kethaval declared, his voice echoing through the vast council chamber. No species develops kinetic weapons of such power. It violates everything we know about technological progression. But the evidence was undeniable. 3 damaged ships had escaped the massacre at Earth, carrying detailed sensor recordings of the battle. The footage showed alien vessels simply disappearing as invisible projectiles struck them at relativistic speeds. War Master Vordan, the Council's greatest military strategist, studied the recordings with growing alarm. In 500 years of galactic warfare, he had never seen anything like this. The humans had somehow weaponized basic physics in a way that made energy shields and armor completely useless. How fast were these projectiles traveling? He asked the trembling survivor who had brought the recordings. Our sensors detected impact velocities of approximately 15% light speed, the alien officer replied. The kinetic energy of each projectile was equivalent to a large nuclear weapon. Scientist Yilpara, the Council's chief researcher, ran calculations on her quantum computer. The numbers made no sense according to current galactic technology. To accelerate projectiles to such speeds would require enormous amounts of energy. How are they powering these weapons? On Earth, President Subin Han convened an emergency meeting of the Planetary Council. The victory had been complete, but now humanity faced a new challenge. They had humiliated the Galactic Council and destroyed a significant military force. Retaliation was inevitable. Colonel Tae-Young-oh, Earth's chief intelligence officer, presented his analysis of captured alien technology. His teams had been studying wreckage from the battle, trying to understand the enemy's capabilities. Their technology is incredibly advanced in some areas, he reported. Faster than light travel, artificial gravity, energy manipulation that we can barely comprehend. But they have glaring weaknesses, such as, asked President Han, they've never developed kinetic weapons beyond basic missiles. Their entire military doctrine is based on energy warfare. Every ship we examined has armor designed to deflect heat and electromagnetic radiation, but it's completely vulnerable to physical impact. Dr. Young-Mi Bae, Earth's leading xenobiologist, had been interrogating the few alien prisoners taken from disabled ships. What she learned was both fascinating and terrifying. The Galactic Council rules over 847 different species across thousands of star systems, she reported. They maintain control through technological superiority and the threat of overwhelming force. But their technology has stagnated. They haven't faced a real challenge in centuries. Admiral Daeho Kim, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, was already planning Earth's next moves. Dr. Bo-Ram Lee's team had developed even more powerful railguns for the new generation of ships. The latest prototypes could accelerate projectiles to 25% of light speed. We can't wait for them to attack us again, he argued during the strategy meeting. The Council will send everything they have next time. We need to strike first and hit them where it hurts. Commander Junho Lee, captain of the new super dreadnought Thunderbolt, supported the Admiral's aggressive approach. His ship carried the most powerful railgun ever built, capable of destroying multiple targets with a single shot. Our advantage won't last forever, he pointed out. Eventually, they'll develop countermeasures or find a way to copy our technology. We need to use our superiority while we still have it. President Han faced the most difficult decision in human history. Earth could remain on the defensive and hope the Council would eventually accept peaceful coexistence. Or they could take the war to the enemy and reshape the entire galactic order. What targets would you recommend? She asked Admiral Kim. 3 major fleet bases, he replied, displaying a holographic map of Council space. Nexus Station, the shipyards at Kepler 442, and the Military Academy at Wolf 359. If we can destroy these installations, we'll cripple their ability to organize a counterattack. The plan was ambitious and dangerous. Human ships would have to travel deep into alien territory, strike without warning, and escape before reinforcements arrived. But the railgun technology gave them unprecedented striking power. War Master Vordan was reaching similar conclusions on the Council side. He had studied every detail of the Earth battle and understood the implications. The humans could destroy Council ships from incredible distances with weapons that couldn't be stopped by conventional defenses. We need to attack immediately, he advised Supreme Overlord Kethaval, before they can build more ships or improve their weapons. Every day we delay makes them stronger. But mobilizing the full Council fleet would take months. The military forces were scattered across hundreds of systems, and many species were reluctant to contribute ships after learning about the devastating defeat at Earth. Scientist Yilpara worked desperately to understand the human railgun technology. The physics were simple enough: electromagnetic acceleration of dense projectiles, but the engineering required to achieve such speeds was beyond current Council capabilities. Their power generation systems must be incredibly efficient, she reported to the War Council, and their magnetic field manipulation is far more advanced than anything we've developed. Meanwhile, intelligence reports from Council spies throughout the galaxy brought disturbing news. Dozens of subjugated species were declaring independence inspired by humanity's example. The idea that the seemingly invincible Council could be defeated was spreading like wildfire. On Earth, final preparations were underway for the preemptive strikes. Admiral Kim had assembled a task force of 30 ships, each equipped with the latest railgun technology. The plan was to hit all 3 targets simultaneously, using humanity's speed advantage to avoid prolonged battles. Dr. Bo-Ram Lee personally supervised the installation of the new weapon systems. The latest railguns used quantum magnetic fields to achieve even higher projectile velocities. A single shot could now destroy the largest Council battleships. Remember, she told the weapons officers during their final briefing, these aren't just battles. We're demonstrating to the entire galaxy that the old order can be challenged. Every shot needs to count. Colonel O had identified the most critical targets within each installation: command centers, shipyards, weapons depots, anything that would cripple the Council's military capability. The attacks would be surgical strikes designed to cause maximum damage with minimal civilian casualties. General Hyojin An prepared contingency plans for defending Earth if the attacks failed. New railgun installations were being built throughout the solar system, creating overlapping fields of fire that could protect the homeworlds. The departure of the human strike force was kept secret from all but the highest levels of government. 30 ships slipped away from Earth orbit under radio silence, beginning their journey to reshape galactic history. Supreme Overlord Kethaval finally authorized the mobilization of the Great Fleet, 50,000 ships from across Council space. But the logistics of assembling such a force would take time, and time was something the Council no longer had. High Counselor Thekmore, facing execution for his catastrophic underestimation of humanity, spent his final days wondering how everything had gone so wrong. The species he had dismissed as primitive Stone Age creatures had become the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. As the human strike force approached their targets, the balance of galactic power hung in the balance. In a few hours, the universe would discover whether humanity's railgun revolution could topple an empire that had ruled the stars for millennia. The age of human dominance was about to begin. 6 months after the first battle at Earth, Fleet Admiral Kyungsoo Cheon stood on the bridge of the human flagship New Seoul, watching the surrender ceremony taking place in the space around the former Council capital. The great fleet that had taken the Council centuries to build lay in ruins, scattered across a dozen star systems by humanity's railgun technology. The 3 simultaneous strikes against Council military installations had exceeded all expectations. Commander Junho Lee's attack on Nexus Station had destroyed over 300 ships under construction. Captain In Ho Kwan's assault on the Kepler 442 shipyards had eliminated the Council's primary manufacturing facility. The strike on Wolf 359 had wiped out an entire generation of military officers, but the real devastation had come afterward, when the Council finally assembled their great fleet of 50,000 ships for what they believed would be the final assault on Earth. War Master Vordan had planned the attack carefully, using new tactics designed to counter humanity's long-range advantage. It hadn't mattered. The railgun technology had evolved faster than alien countermeasures. Dr. Bo-Ram Lee's newest weapons could fire projectiles at 30% of light speed, with accuracy that bordered on supernatural. When the Great Fleet met humanity's expanded forces near Alpha Centauri, the result was the largest military disaster in galactic history. Ambassador Yoon Ji Park, who had replaced Hae Won Choi as Earth's chief diplomat, watched as Supreme Overlord Kethval signed the new Galactic Accords. The document formally ended the Council's authority over most of its former territory and established humanity as a major galactic power. It's hard to believe, she murmured to Admiral Cheon. A year ago, we were the ones being threatened with conquest. Now we're writing the terms of galactic peace. The transformation had been remarkable and swift. As news of humanity's victories spread, subjugated species throughout the galaxy had risen in rebellion. The Council's military, designed to fight energy-based wars, was helpless against the wave of kinetic weapons that human technology had inspired. Captain In Ho Kwan commanded the Honor Guard, a formation of 12 human ships that served as both ceremony escort and subtle reminder of Earth's new power. Each vessel mounted the latest generation of railguns, weapons capable of destroying entire fleets from distances measured in light minutes. General Hyojin An had been busy establishing the Terran protection zones, regions of space where newly independent species could develop without fear of reconquest. Her forces served as peacekeepers, using the threat of railgun retaliation to maintain stability. The old Galactic Council had ruled through fear and technological superiority. The new order was based on the simple principle that anyone who threatened peaceful species would face the wrath of humanity's kinetic weapons. Scientist Yil Para, one of the few council members to survive the purges that followed the military disasters, had finally succeeded in understanding railgun technology. But her research only confirmed what everyone already knew: the humans had achieved something remarkable through pure engineering excellence. They took a simple concept and perfected it beyond all reasonable limits, she explained to the surviving council leadership. Electromagnetic acceleration isn't new technology, but their implementation is centuries ahead of anything we could build. Dr. Bo-Ram Lee, now head of the Galactic Research Consortium, was working on sharing selected human technologies with the former council subjects. Fusion power, advanced materials, and basic electromagnetic systems were being distributed freely, but railgun technology remained strictly controlled. Trust must be earned, she explained to critics who wanted immediate technology transfer. We'll share what helps rebuild civilization, but weapons technology requires proof of peaceful intentions. The political changes were as dramatic as the military ones. Hundreds of species that had been forced into the Council's hierarchy were now free to govern themselves. Many chose to ally with Earth, grateful for their liberation and eager to learn from humanity's example. Colonel Tae Young, now Director of Galactic Intelligence, monitored the ongoing transformation. His agents reported growing stability throughout the former Council space. The fear that had maintained the old order was being replaced by hope for a better future. Most species are adapting well to independence, he reported during the weekly briefing. There are some holdout factions loyal to the old council, but they lack the military power to threaten anyone. President Subin Han, now in her second term as Earth's leader, reflected on the incredible changes that had transformed humanity from an isolated species to the galaxy's dominant power. The responsibility was enormous and sometimes overwhelming. We never wanted to be conquerors, she reminded her cabinet during their monthly review. Our goal was always peaceful coexistence. Everything that followed came from the Council's refusal to treat us as equals. The former High Counselor Thekmore, serving a life sentence for war crimes, had become an unlikely symbol of the old order's arrogance. His imprisonment served as a reminder that treating other species as inferior had consequences. War Master Vordan had died during the final battle at Alpha Centauri, his flagship destroyed by a railgun round that had traveled across half the star system to find its target. His tactical genius had been useless against weapons that could strike from impossible distances. Commander Su Jin Yoon, now Admiral of the Third Fleet, patrolled the rimward territories where some Council remnants still operated. Her ships served as mobile deterrents, ready to respond quickly to any threats against the newly independent worlds. The economic transformation was as significant as the political one. Without the Council's oppressive taxation and resource extraction, many worlds were experiencing prosperity for the first time in centuries. Trade flowed freely between systems protected by human patrol ships. Engineer Dong Hyun Lim had been promoted to Chief of Galactic Infrastructure, overseeing the construction of railgun defense platforms around vulnerable worlds. These installations could protect entire star systems from invasion, making conquest nearly impossible. Lieutenant Hyun-Woo Kang, now Captain Kang, commanded one of the new exploration vessels pushing into the galactic rim. These ships sought out undiscovered species and offered them protection from any remaining threats. The ceremony concluded with Supreme Overlord Kethaval formally dissolving the Galactic Council and transferring authority to the new Galactic Assembly. This body included representatives from over 200 species, with humanity holding a permanent seat but not dominant control. "We believe in governance by consensus," Ambassador Park explained to the assembled delegates. "Earth's military power ensures peace, but political decisions should be made by all affected species." As the former council leaders departed under escort, Admiral Cheon reflected on the strange turns of fate that had brought humanity to this moment. A species that had been ignored and dismissed as primitive now served as the galaxy's protector. Captain Woo-Jin Park, veteran of the First Battle and now commander of the Memorial Fleet, led a formation flyby to honor those who had died in the conflicts. His original ship, the Thunderstrike, had been preserved as a monument to humanity's first steps onto the galactic stage. The railgun technology that had revolutionized warfare was now being adapted for peaceful purposes. Electromagnetic accelerators launched cargo between star systems, reducing travel times and transportation costs. The same principles that had destroyed fleets now helped build prosperity. Dr. Young Mi Bei continued her xenobiological research, but now her subjects were willing partners rather than prisoners. Her work helped newly independent species understand their own biology and develop better medical treatments. As the ceremony ended and the various delegations departed, Fleet Admiral Cheon looked out at the stars and considered humanity's future. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders yet to be discovered and challenges yet to be faced. But for the first time in galactic history, those challenges would be met by a community of equals, rather than subjects ruled by their supposed betters. The age of human dominance had begun not with conquest, but with the simple insistence that all intelligent species deserved respect. The railguns were silent now, their purpose fulfilled. Peace reigned among the stars, guaranteed by the knowledge that those who threatened it would face the full fury of humanity's kinetic weapons. In the end, the most primitive technology had proved the most effective. Sometimes the best solution was simply to throw rocks very, very fast.